Have you ever stopped to think why, despite living in the most prosperous and connected era in human history, so many people feel profoundly empty inside? Why? Surrounded by infinite possibilities for entertainment, information, and connection, do we experience record levels of anxiety, depression, and a persistent sense that something fundamental is missing? I'm not talking about abstract statistics or distant social trends. I'm talking about that feeling you might recognize in the silence of the early morning hours, when distractions cease, and you wonder if you're truly living or just existing. This restlessness isn't a personal flaw of yours, nor an individual weakness. It's the symptom of something much deeper happening to our species. We are witnessing the systematic erosion of what we might call the soul of human society. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived in small communities where each person intimately knew their place in the world. Their lives were woven into a dense network of meaningful relationships, shared rituals, and collective narratives that gave meaning not just to individual existence, but to the human experience as a whole. The Paleolithic hunter who set out on an expedition knew exactly why he was doing it, for whom he was doing it, and how his action connected with the larger cosmos around him. His identity wasn't a fragile individual construction that needed to be constantly reaffirmed through likes and external validation. It was something solid, rooted in thousands of years of tradition and belonging. This solidity began to fragment about 12,000 years ago with the agricultural revolution, but the process accelerated dramatically in recent centuries. The Industrial Revolution tore millions of people from their traditional rural communities and deposited them in cities where they became anonymous cogs in giant productive machines. But even this transformation maintained certain elements that nourished the human soul. Work had a clear and visible purpose. Families remained united by economic necessity, and organized religions still offered structures of meaning for most people. What we're experiencing now is fundamentally different. It's the first time in history that an entire generation of human beings is growing up without deep connections to stable communities, without convincing collective narratives about the meaning of life, and without meaningful rituals that mark life's important passages. We've replaced deep human bonds with superficial digital connections. We've traded transcendent narratives for infinite entertainment. We've abandoned rites of passage for consumption milestones. And the result is a silent epidemic of existential emptiness that no amount of antidepressants or meditation apps can completely cure. Consider for a moment the nature of modern social life. How many people do you really know? I'm not talking about knowing names or faces, but knowing deeply in such a way that their joys and pains genuinely matter to you and vice versa. For our hunter-gatherer ancestors, this number hovered around 150 people, the famous Dunbar's number that represents the cognitive limit for stable social relationships. Today, paradoxically, many people live in cities with millions of inhabitants, but have difficulty naming 5 people they could count on in a real crisis. We're surrounded by humanity, but deeply isolated, digitally connected but emotionally disconnected. This disconnection isn't just a matter of individual well-being, it's eroding the very foundations of society itself. Healthy communities depend on people who care about each other, who share collective responsibilities, and who have vested interest in the common good. When these bonds dissolve, what remains is a collection of atomized individuals, each struggling to maximize their own short-term interests, unable to cooperate to solve problems that affect everyone. Digital technology, which promised to connect us like never before, has ended up becoming one of the main forces behind this atomization. Social media gives us the illusion of connection while actually keeping us isolated in our own feedback bubbles. We spend hours daily consuming the carefully curated lives of people we barely know, comparing our messy realities with the polished fantasies others project online. The result is a constant sense of inadequacy, as if everyone else has figured out the secret to a fulfilling life while we're left behind. Worse still, the attention economy that feeds these platforms is explicitly designed to keep our brains in a state of constant agitation. Every notification, every infinite scroll, every variable reward system has been calibrated by teams of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists to keep our attention fragmented and our nervous system on permanent alert. It's no coincidence that anxiety and attention deficit rates have exploded at the same time smartphones became ubiquitous. We're literally reprogramming our brains to be incapable of the deep contemplation and genuine connection that nourish the human soul. But technology is just one of the forces at play. The other major corrosion comes from what we might call the ideology of extreme individualism. In recent decades, we've been bombarded with messages telling us that we are totally responsible for our own destiny, that we should follow our dreams regardless of the consequences for others, and that any form of obligation or commitment to communities is a limitation on our personal authenticity. This mentality, while it may seem liberating on the surface, actually deprives us of one of the deepest sources of human meaning, the sense that we are part of something larger than ourselves. When everything becomes a matter of individual choice, paradoxically, nothing seems really important. If I can change careers, relationships, cities, or identities whenever I want, then none of these choices carries the existential weight necessary to generate deep meaning. Commitment, constancy, and even limitation are essential ingredients for a life rich in meaning, but our culture portrays them as traps to be avoided. This mentality also extends to our relationship with work. Most people today work in jobs that, honestly, they can't really explain what they do or why it matters. David Graeber called many of these jobs bullshit jobs, positions that seem to exist more to keep people busy than to create real value in the world. When you spend 40 or 50 hours a week doing something you feel is fundamentally useless, it corrodes your sense of purpose and dignity in a way that no amount of weekend leisure can compensate for. Meanwhile, consumerism has become our primary form of identity, expression, and pursuit of happiness. We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us that the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next experience will finally bring us the satisfaction we seek. But consumerism is by design insatiable. It needs to keep us eternally dissatisfied, to continue functioning. Genuine, lasting happiness would be catastrophic for an economy based on infinite growth of consumption. So we create entire generations of people who confuse temporary pleasure with lasting joy, who believe they can buy their identity in stores, and who measure their self-worth by the amount of things they own or experiences they collect. But identity cannot be bought, only developed through deep relationships and meaningful contributions to something greater than ourselves. Organized religion, for all its problems and limitations, at least offered stable structures of meaning and community. Even when people didn't literally believe all the doctrines, religious rituals marked life's passages, created regular occasions for deep reflection, and reminded people that they were part of a story much larger than their own individual lives. As these structures weaken, nothing emerges to replace them. We have no secular equivalents to rituals for birth, adolescence, marriage, aging, and death. We have no regular occasions for collective contemplation of the fundamental mysteries of existence. The result is that we drift through life without clear landmarks, without collective narratives, and without a sense of transcendent purpose. Each person is forced to invent their own philosophy of life from scratch, an impossible task that leaves most people feeling lost and overwhelmed. It's no surprise that so many people turn to extreme political ideologies, conspiracy theories, or self-help gurus in a desperate search for some structure of meaning, no matter how toxic or illusory it might be. I need to stop for a moment and ask directly, do you feel this emptiness I'm talking about? This sense that you're playing a role in a play whose script nobody explained properly? That you're running on a treadmill, always busy, but rarely accomplishing something that feels truly important? I know many of us keep these feelings to ourselves, perhaps afraid to admit that despite all our achievements and possessions, we still feel something essential is missing. But you're not alone in this. If this emptiness resonates with your experience, share in the comments. I feel this emptiness when I realize that your honesty can help others see that they're not alone in this silent struggle so many of us face. But recognizing the problem is just the first step. The harder question is, what can we do about it? How can we rebuild the structures of meaning and community that our species needs to thrive? We can't simply go back to the past. Times have changed irreversibly. But we can learn from what worked in traditional societies and adapt those principles to our contemporary reality. First, we need to rediscover the art of building deep and lasting relationships. This means going beyond the superficial interactions that dominate our social life and creating spaces for vulnerability, intimacy, and mutual commitment. It means choosing quality over quantity in our friendships, investing regular time in specific people, and accepting that meaningful relationships require work, patience, and sometimes even productive conflict. Second, we need to find ways to contribute to something larger than ourselves. This doesn't have to be grandiose or revolutionary. It can be as simple as genuinely engaging with your local community, developing skills that benefit others, or dedicating part of your time to a cause you truly believe in. The important thing is to move away from exclusive focus on the self and reconnect with the fact that we are social creatures whose happiness depends on collective well-being. Third, we need to create new rituals and practices that mark life's important passages and connect us with larger mysteries. These don't need to be religious in the traditional sense, but they must have enough depth to pull us out of the constant flow of distractions and put us in touch with fundamental questions about meaning, mortality, and our place in the cosmos. Fourth, we need to be much more intentional about our relationship with technology. This means establishing clear boundaries about when and how we use digital devices, creating screen-free spaces in our homes and lives, and consciously choosing activities that nurture our capacity for deep attention and genuine presence. Fifth, we need to rethink our relationship with work. This might mean seeking careers that have clear positive impact on the world, or finding ways to bring more meaning to whatever work we do. It also means resisting the toxic productivity culture that tells us we should be constantly busy and optimizing our performance. Sixth, we need to cultivate regular contemplative practices, whether meditation, nature walks, reflective writing, or any other activity that allows us to process our experience at a deeper level. Our culture is addicted to constant stimulation, and recovering the capacity for silence and introspection is essential for reconnecting with our inner lives. The truth is that the forces corroding the soul of modern society are powerful and well established. They are sustained by enormous economic interests and by social systems that benefit from our fragmentation and constant dissatisfaction. Changing this requires not just individual effort, but also collective action to create social structures that support genuine human flourishing rather than simply maximum economic growth. We need policies that prioritize community well-being over maximum economic efficiency. We need technologies designed to amplify our humanity rather than exploit it. We need cultural narratives that celebrate connection, contribution, and contemplation as much as they celebrate individual achievement and material accumulation. This might seem like an impossible task, but it's worth remembering that current conditions are neither natural nor inevitable. They are the result of specific choices made by specific societies at specific moments in history, and if they were created by human choices, they can be changed by different human choices. The first civilization in history that has sufficient material resources to end extreme poverty, sufficient knowledge to cure most diseases, and sufficient technology to connect all of humanity, can also choose to use these capabilities to nurture complete human flourishing. We can choose to create societies that not only keep our bodies alive and comfortable, but that also feed our souls. But this requires that we recognize something is deeply wrong with our current situation. It requires that we stop pretending that chronic anxiety, widespread depression, and existential emptiness are just the natural price of modern progress. It requires that we admit that a truly advanced society would be one that produces flourishing human beings, not just efficient consumers. And it requires that each of us make different choices in our own lives starting today. Because while larger structures matter, the soul of society is ultimately made up of the individual souls that compose it. And every time we choose real connection over digital entertainment, every time we prioritize relationships over acquisitions, every time we seek meaningful contribution over superficial success, we're doing our part to heal not just our own lives, but the collective life of our species. The journey to rebuild society's soul begins with the journey to rebuild our own soul. And this journey, however challenging, may be the most important and rewarding adventure we undertake. Because on the other side of this journey lies not just individual happiness, but the possibility of a civilization that truly deserves the name advanced. If these reflections have touched something you've been feeling, but perhaps haven't found words to express, know that you're not alone. By subscribing to this channel, you'll connect with a growing community of people who share your concerns and your desire for a deeper understanding of the existential challenges of our time. Each week, we meet here to explore together the big questions that define our era and to seek not just understanding, but also wiser ways to live amid the transformations we're witnessing. This isn't just a channel, but a space for dialogue and collective growth where we can honestly examine what it means to be human in the 21st century and how we can together create an existence richer in meaning and connection. Subscribe so we can continue this essential conversation about how to live with more wisdom and purpose in a world that often leaves us disoriented and disconnected from our own deepest humanity.
I love to consider myself a storyteller. As an actor and a filmmaker, it's something that I think of as more than a job. I connect to it on maybe an existential level, on who I am. And one thing I often like to say even is that storytelling is a big part of what makes humans human. So as an expert on the history and the prehistory of what humans are, I'm curious to hear what you think of that statement. If I say storytelling is a big part of what makes humans human, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
this is the this is the source of our power. We control the world because we can cooperate in much larger numbers than any other animal. And the secret of cooperation of humans is stories. I mean, you can't get to know more than 100 or 200 individuals, but the same story can be known to millions and even billions of people. And as long as everybody believes the same story, they can cooperate. They can agree on norms and values and so forth.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I don't have much time, so in this brief talk, I would like to raise three big questions. First, what is AI? Secondly, what is the danger of AI? And thirdly, how can humanity flourish in the era of AI? So let's begin with the question of what is AI? There is so much hype around AI that the term is now inaccurately applied to almost every machine, and it is becoming difficult to know what it really means. So let me be very, very clear. AI does not mean automation. AI means agency. AI isn't a tool in our hands. AI is an agent. To be an AI it is not enough for a machine to act automatically. It must also have the capacity to learn and change by itself, to make decisions by itself, and to invent new ideas by itself. As a simple example, consider a coffee machine. If you press a button and the machine automatically makes you an espresso according to a pre-programmed procedure, this is not AI. The machine hasn't learned or created anything new. But suppose that as you approach the machine, even before you press any button, the machine says, "I've been monitoring you for several weeks. Based on everything I've learned about you and about many other humans, I predict that you would like an espresso. So I already made you a cup." That's an AI. It learned something and decided something by itself. And it's really an AI if on the following day the machine announces, "I've now invented a new drink, which I think you would like even better than espresso. Here, try it out. I've made you a cup." In addition to agency, the other key characteristic of AI is that it is an alien, non-organic agent. Its intelligence is not human and not even organic. It makes decisions and invents ideas that would not occur to human beings. A very famous example was the way that the AI AlphaGo defeated the human Go champion Lee Sedol in 2016. This game became rightly famous not just because an AI defeated a human Go master, but because in order to win, AlphaGo invented new alien strategies that never occurred to human players in thousands of years of Go culture before. As long as AI invents new ways to play games or new kinds of coffee, it doesn't seem very important. However, AI may soon invent new military and financial strategies, new kinds of weapons and currencies, and even entirely new ideologies and religions. So now let's move to the second question. What is the danger of AI? Of course, AI has enormous positive potential, and it can help humanity in countless ways, from inventing new medicines to helping to prevent catastrophic climate change. But AI also poses many threats. The basic problem with AI is that it is an alien agent and therefore unpredictable and untrustworthy. At the heart of the race to develop super intelligent AI, there is a paradox of trust. Humans find it difficult to trust other humans, but some of us nevertheless believe that we should trust the AIs. When I travel around the world and meet the people who lead the development of AI, I routinely ask them two questions. First, I ask, why are they moving so fast despite the huge risks? And the response almost all of them give is, we agree that there are big dangers and it would be best to proceed with care and invest more in safety. However, if we slow down while our competitors don't slow down, they will win the AI race and the world will be dominated by the most ruthless people. We cannot trust our human competitors, so we must move as fast as possible. Then I ask the second question. Do you think you could trust the super intelligent AIs that you are developing? And the same people who just told me that they cannot trust their human competitors now assure me that they can trust the super intelligent AIs they are developing. And this is such a paradox. We have thousands of years of experience with human beings. We have a broad understanding of human psychology and biology, of the human craving for power, and of the forces that keep the pursuit of power in check. We have also made considerable progress in finding ways to build trust between humans. 100,000 years ago, people lived in tiny bands of just a few dozen individuals and couldn't trust anybody outside their band. Today, in contrast, there are nations like China with 1.4 billion citizens, and there are networks of cooperation connecting all 8 billion humans on the planet. Total strangers often grow the food that sustains us and invent the medicines that protect us. Of course, we are far from completely solving the problem of human trust, but at least we understand the challenge that we are facing. In contrast, we have almost no experience with AIs. We have just created the first prototypes. We already know that even primitive AIs can lie, manipulate, and adopt goals and strategies not foreseen by the human developers. We have no idea what will happen when millions of super intelligent AI agents interact with millions of humans. It is even more difficult to predict what will happen when millions of super intelligent AI agents interact with one another. True, since at present it is humans who develop the AIs, we can try to design them in a way that will make them safe. But recall that a machine is an AI only if it is capable of learning and changing by itself. So no matter how humans designed them originally, the AI can then change in a radical and unpredictable manner. One way to think about the AI revolution is by comparing it to an alien invasion from outer space. Suppose you are told that spaceships full of highly intelligent aliens are approaching Earth and will land on our planet by 2030. We hope these aliens will be friendly and will help us overcome cancer, prevent climate change, and build a flourishing and peaceful world. But most people intuitively understand that it would be dangerous to entrust our future to the goodwill of these aliens. Similarly, it is a huge gamble to assume that we can simply trust the AI agents we are developing to remain our obedient servants. The humans who despair of trusting other humans but hope it would be easier to trust the AIs may be making a very big mistake. So let me move to the last question. How can humanity flourish in the era of AI? The answer is simple. Together, humans can control AI. But if we fight one another, AI will control us. Therefore, we should build more trust between humans before we develop truly super intelligent AI agents. Unfortunately, at present, we are doing exactly the opposite. All over the world, trust between humans is collapsing. The crisis of trust results from a big misunderstanding. Too many countries think that to be strong means to trust no one and to be completely separated from the others. But complete separation is impossible. Indeed, in nature, complete separation is death. Think about the human body as an example. Every minute, we breathe in and out, in and out. Every breath we take is a small gesture of trust in what is outside us. We take air from the outside into our lungs, into our body, and later give it back to the universe. This trusting in and out movement is the rhythm of life. If we distrust everything outside us and therefore stop this in and out movement, we die. This is true of entire nations too. Each nation is a different combination of traditions and ideas, but many of these traditions and ideas come from the outside, just like the air that we breathe. China, for example, has given over thousands of years so much to other countries, from the ideas of Confucius and Mao to tea, Go, gunpowder, and printing. It has also received so much from other places, from the ideas of Buddha and Karl Marx to coffee, football, trains, and computers. If people belonging to any nation restrict themselves only to the food, the games, and the ideas that originated in their own nations, our lives would be very poor, if not impossible. Every human belongs to some group, but every human also belongs to the whole human species. And in the age of AI, if we forget our shared human legacies and lose trust in everything and everybody outside us, that will make us very easy prey for an out-of-control AI. Too many people think that the legacies of history are mainly pain and fear. People read in history books about past wars, atrocities, and injustices, and as a result, they cling to past pains and they fear future pains. They look around at other people and other nations with nothing but anxiety. While fear and pain are of course important for survival, and while they sometimes protect us from danger, nobody can survive on a diet of fear and pain alone. History teaches us that trust is more important than either. Do you know why planet Earth is ruled by humans and not by chimpanzees or elephants? Not because humans are more intelligent. Humans rule the world because we know better than any other animal how to build trust with strangers and cooperate in very, very large numbers. We have developed this ability for thousands of years. Now, it is more important than ever. To survive and flourish in the age of AI, we need to trust other humans more than we trust AI. Thank you. AI can replicate intimacy the same way that it masters language and the same way that it previously mastered attention. The next frontier is intimacy. And intimacy is much more powerful than attention. If you want to change somebody's views on politics, to sell a product, anything, intimacy is the most powerful tool to do that. Good friend can change your views in a way that no number of articles in a newspaper or a book can do. Until today, nothing could fake intimacy, and it was impossible in particular to mass produce intimacy. AI can do that. Now, what happens if a new generation grows up and develops intimate relations with AIs instead of with other human beings? Again, we don't know. It could have some maybe benefits, but the potential danger is enormous. That people will become attached to fake people, and in the process we lose the ability to create intimacy with real human beings, because real human beings are much more problematic than AIs. AI that wants to become your intimate friend, its greatest advantage is that it has no feelings of its own. It's never upset, it's never angry, it's never tired. It can focus on you 100%
and understand exactly how you feel, create fake sense of intimacy. You try to establish a relationship with a human being, the feelings come in between.